Hello, everyone. You're welcome to today's session. I hope we are all happy to be here today. Today, I'm going to be your moderator for this session. My name is Promise Onwachuku. We have various links up right now, just in case you have not followed any of our links. You can see we have the Meetup, the Twitch, the YouTube, and the Twitter link. So please ensure to follow us on our handles to get updated on the various activities and trainings we are going to be running. All right, just a brief review of our training plan for today. Today we'll be having the Identity Part 2 session. And also in the evening by 6 p.m., we'll be having our DevOps training session 2, and it will be taken by none other than able speaker Damilare Abiod Ibrahim. All right, so just as you're connected now, don't forget to also connect to the session by 6 p.m. All right, I'll be going ahead to introduce you to our speaker for the day. Our speaker for the day is Seyi Oluwawumiju. He is our regional lead in Nigeria for the MCT program. He's also one of the conveners for the Nigeria Azure community, and he is also a management executive with the Covenant Technologies. And well, he is our able MVP as well. You can see his email address. You can always reach out to him if you want to. All right, so I'll be bringing on Seyi now, and he'll be taking us on the beautiful topic for today. Hello, Seyi, are you there?
Hi. Yeah, yes. Promise, I'm here.
I'm doing great, Seyi. How's your day going?
Oh, fine. Raining over here in Lagos, but we're still alive and we're coping. Yeah.
Yes, that's good. That's good. In fact, I have been looking forward to this session just to listen and be able to learn one or two things from the training for this evening. And I'm also sure that everyone out there is just expecting to learn one or two things from today. So we are glad to have you here with us today, and we'll be listening to you right now.
Everyone to this section, and I hope you are having a great day. Now we're going to look at we started this topic some weeks back where we intro to identity, how we can actually use identity management to secure our environment and enterprise, etc. Now we talked last 3 weeks at 2 weeks, we looked at why we got to this point, the reason why we are here now. The reason why we are here now is because of the change that occur generally in the whole world. Digital estate has changed from what we usually know it to be to what it is now, and that is like piling up or changing the course of time. And the change that brought about digital transformation has always brought about a lot of momentum in terms of cloud adoption, and cloud adoption which has bring in a lot of challenges, a lot of efficiency, and a lot of things generally about IT has changed with the course of time. So we're going to look at the second part of this identity management. And Promise have already introduced me, so I'll just keep that. But before I go to my section, most of the time, I like to talk about people that change the course of their visionary approach to things. I'm going to talk about a guy which was a man that died in 2013. His name is Douglas Eggebert. What was so special about us, and I saw in it when the invention of computer was first chipping some years back, way back in 1960s. He looked at a way. Most time they use punch queue to be able to input computer data, and in his own, he made a decision to just make a change to time, make a change to the change that was occurring in those days, and it brought about a way by which you can easily navigate through a computer, input data easily, and that was the mouse. And that, look at the diagram there, that was the first mouse that was created way back in those years, and that shows us precisely what technology can do for us. But we have to have an open mind, and the way you see technology, way technology will be used for you. Now, why identity? Now, in this today, we're going to look at this the second part in this sequence. First of all, we're going to look at why access management, a little intro, rather, to Azure Active Directory, the identity management in the cloud. We're going to look at identity practice, identity without border. Then we're going to look at use cycle, and we're going to look at some demo about looking at Azure Active Directory generally, and creating user and group, how to license them, and look at one demo on B2B. And B is like you are inviting people to do business with you, but they don't have directory, or they don't have access, or they don't have an account in your directory system. And but because of the business, what I said earlier, digital transformation have changed the way things are, and the digital estate has moved to the cloud in a way that our former way of on-prem navigation have changed. Now, let's dive into identity and access management. What is identity, and why we need to manage our access? Identity, last week I gave a reference to when initially got an understanding of what a directory is. Then my father brought in a NITEL book, because if you are in Nigeria in those days, we don't have a mobile phone. Thank God for the then President Olusegun Obasanjo that brought mobile facility to the country, and everybody had access to Android. We were cheaper. Thank God for Techno. But then what we used then was a catalog of a book which have all the directory of the users that use an analog phone. Now, the directory now comprises of the name of the person, the access he has to NITEL, and the directory in terms of the number that was given to that particular name. So what identity means, having something to signify who you are, and not about who you are. Directory system in the IT world, this also determines what access you have. And in my, there are three major pillars I look at the way directory is spanned over the year in this new digital world. One, the front door. The front door for every man is the place by which you come in. Everybody gets into your apartment by having a door which you unlock to be able to have access to your flat. So also identity and access management in terms of looking at Active Directory is the pointer, the first point. The second one, because we know we are in the world that mobile and digital first is just the language that is across almost all the borders, where people use more than this, and those devices are not literally devices that are managed centrally by IT. These are devices that you bring into your company, and with the event of change, people look at a way of managing it. Now, the third pillar, when you look at the directory system and Azure Active Directory, is how does it monitor this access? How does it keep you in check? How does it protect those identity, those entity, those groups, those computers and those devices, whether it's the mobile one, whether it's the one that you are managing in your own IT facility, whether are users' identity, how does it create an avenue for remediation in case there is an access attack? So that is all what we're going to look at, and that is just what identity and access management through Azure Active Directory looks like. Let's just look at intro to Azure Active Directory. Now, as I said before, the reality here is that mobile first and cloud first is real. Several tests, several survey has been done, and that has shown that precisely the change has occurred over years, and this change is now pointing out to us that in order to mitigate any excessive abuse, we must be able to manage and have a good identity system. Now, what are the things that make this so real? Now, data breaches. Over 63 data breaches has occurred in the past.
Yes. I think we lost Seyi there in the transmission, but he'll be back soon. Seyi was basically talking to us about the whole identity thing, and in the process of that, one of the things he was basically asking or talking about was, how do you manage your identity in the cloud? This is a very, very, very interesting session. Well, one of the things I would do at this moment is just give a brief intro, or basically share some light onto what identity is all about. Now, just as Seyi was talking to us, we were looking at what is the overview of the Azure Active Directory. What exactly does the Azure Active Directory do for us? Now, basically, the Azure Active Directory is basically a comprehensive identity and management solution. So this is just a solution that Azure provides for us to be able to identify ourselves. So some of you will be wondering, okay, Azure Identity, how does Azure, right, relate its own identity to us? The beautiful thing about this is that we make use of this every time we actually log into our Azure environment. In fact, from the point you actually do log into your portal.azure.com, the first thing you get to notice is that you're actually redirected to the identity management system. And what that does is it asks you, okay, can you identify yourself? Right? By identifying yourself is, can you put in your username and a password? And the funny thing about this is, for you to be able to have an active management system or an active identity system, you need to first of all get an active subscription. So just while we are waiting for Seyi, if you have any questions regarding the whole identity management, please also feel free to share your questions on the chat session. All right, I will be continuing with what Azure Active Directory is all about. Now, you would notice that a greater percentage, I would say, of about 85% of Fortune 500 companies are actually making use of the Azure Active Directory Management System. And this 85% we're talking about roughly translates into about 10 million people. 10 million people and above. And you know, just like we have in this environment, it keeps growing every day. The Azure identity environment keeps growing every day. All right, we will basically talk about the security part of the Azure identity system. Okay, so it looks like Seyi just came back. Hello, Seyi, are you there? Okay, so
as earlier flagged that
yes,
there is rather some issue with my internet. Yeah.
Yes, Seyi, we kind of missed you there for a moment, and
Yes.
I was basically talking about the Azure Active Directory system and trying to give a brief intro just before you came back. So now you can actually proceed with the session.
So let me just share my screen, and just I'll share it, and I start off from there. Sorry for that.
Yeah, no problem. You can proceed.
Okay. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay. Sorry for the loss of communication, and I was trying to establish a fact why directory system become a need, not just a necessity, a front point decision, a decision that you need to take in order to secure your enterprise. I talked about various data breach that has occurred, almost 63% from the statistics carried out some years back shows that this was done because of weak default password, or probably someone stole your password by proxy. And shadow IT is increasing, and shadow IT is just a sequence by which users that are registered bona fide user in your environment still use other devices, for private devices like their email, to communicate with your customers, to get information, to share data. They also use some devices, some private devices, to make things to work with and to be able to use it in your enterprise. And these are challenges. And we also saw that Gartner predicted that IT spend will grow. That was back in 2016. But what we are seeing today is that mobile first, cloud first is a reality. And if you are around for the past 1 year, that has shown us that there is no way we are able to change the sequence of time because of these different changes that has occurred in our IT industry. Now, it brings us to a point. What is Azure Active Directory? Now, Azure Active Directory, we started up by establishing a fact that directory system generally comprised of two things: identity and ability to have access to application, access to data, access to things that you use regularly in your enterprise. So the comprehensive way of managing identity and access management in the cloud for both users, employee, partners, customer, in a very, very seamless way. It's what Azure Active Directory is all about. Whether you are B2E, B2B, or B2C, the fact is that you need a directory system that is rich, that can easily be governed with policies, that has a very rich standard-based platform that not only as a user, as an application developer, you can launch on it and be able to use this to determine, to protect, and to allow your application to be built on this infrastructure. Now, generally, the cloud technology in Microsoft is built on Azure, where Azure is like the solid foundation, and the directory system now become a key. Just as I said in the beginning, the front door is what allow people to be able to have access to your flat, to your safe, or anything that you have. So in order to secure this, you must have a directory system that can go beyond just protecting you. It can manage you, it can monitor your activity. Now, in the course of time, Azure Active Directory is moving more like an identity management services on Microsoft Azure platform, where it is independently controlled by owners or the tenants that have subscribed for this particular service from Microsoft. Whether you are using M365 or you are working on any Power Platform, whether you are working on Power BI, you are going to be integrated to the Azure directory system. Now, this extension has make Azure, from the statistics, almost 85% of Fortune 500 people are already on this platform. Azure Directory has more than 10 million, and more than 750 million user account is running currently at the time of this report. I always make this reference, and I want to give a disclaimer here that sometimes when it comes to cloud technology, the data you see now in the next 1 week might be obsolete and might not be conformable. So you must have that at the back. It's a constantly changing environment that we are living on. We are living in an age that technology is changing per the minutes of second. Now, we have seen Active Directory, and now Microsoft has a vision. Apart from creating an environment that can be built on directory system, it's also an extension to security. Now, looking at EMS, Enterprise Security, where user also stand as core. Not only user, managing your devices, even the application you build, you need a directory system that can manage it. And in the core of the web of data consumption that goes beyond just your on-prem environment, that goes beyond your people want to have access to information, to data anywhere, then you must have a directory system that is intertwined into security, that can be like a spider web that goes with every data, whether the data is addressed or it's is moving, or it has gone beyond your current physical location or current logical location, is moving from devices to devices. You must ensure that the security is built on that. Now, knowing that, let's now look at the reality of today. The reality of today shows that irrespective of your cloud platform, irrespective of where you build your infrastructure, whether on-prem, whether you are using it as a managed devices, whether you have your Active Directory, whether the one that is running a Windows server, which is what we know directory system to have evolved from, to the Azure Active Directory, you must understand that reality calls for being able to have a core enterprise control plane that can devise a way of managing your devices from your directory down to the application development. So whether you are running it from on-prem, you must understand that you need a directory system. Whether you are running it from the cloud and you want to have access to public cloud, have access to other applications that runs on software as Access or M365 or Office 365, you must have a platform that can be like a core plane that can navigate between your application and ensure that the consumption of those applications is done by bona fide identified users. So Azure Active Directory stand in between. Create a simple connection. Ensure there is a communication between your on-prem down to the cloud, and also increase the way you manage users using services like self-service management, or what we all refer to a single sign-on platform. A single sign-on platform is because of the challenge of having several identity, several username and password, and because of that, you need a common point. You need a single point by which your identity can cut across all the application you want to consume, and you can use this same identity to marry to your data as it's moving at rest and is moving as a mobile data. You can have it at any time, anywhere, at any location. Now, the change that is occurring recently also is moving not just for customers, people you talk to, people you work with, also partners, people that partner with you in developing things. You can have common directory. You can have directory system to your customer can come in and have access and consume some of your data by using what we call the platform of inviting them as a guest user. So you need a secure platform that can do that. Now, this brings us to a point that whether you are building an application or you have several of your users using devices across the world and are able to consume, want to consume your data, want to consume the information on your platform, you want to enable a business that is without border, you want to manage the scale at which you get people can have access to document, to information, and with a peace of mind that they are all powered and protected in the cloud. There is no way you cannot do without using Azure Active Directory. Now, statistics has shown that the baseline has been built around it when it comes to application development, where you can have single sign-on. You can also support lift and shifts of your traditional app from the one that is on-prem to the one that is in cloud. You can also have access to your application remotely because you have an identity system that is built, and several testimonies have been given, like from Bristol, where Bristol is a company in UK that use Azure Active Directory in order to mitigate against any excessive breach that comes from identity theft. Now, the cloud now brings us to a point where we have a seamless authentication experience, down from your database, running to your web services, to your Windows server on Active Directory, down to the Azure, at a connection that can be seamless between your system and ensuring that your information is properly synchronized. Now, looking at this now, we want to look at types of Azure Active Directory. What are the type of the Azure Active Directory we have over here that we have? We have the free one. Now, the free one can only allow you to have at least a 500 client object limits. The basic one comes most time when you are subscribed to M365 or any other application that runs on that Microsoft offer as a cloud application. Then you have the Azure Directory Premium. We have the Premium is divided into 1 and 2. Then each of them has a measure of security that is built beyond the common security that we see in the basic Azure Active Directory. Now, it allows single sign-on. Almost all of them allow single sign-on, self-service password. You can sync it with on-prem when you are building an hybrid system. Then in terms of security usage, there is a monitoring tool that will help you. But in terms of group-based management, you can see more on the Azure Basic or the Azure Premium, or when you are using an Office app. Then for self-service password reset cloud users, you can basically find that from the Basic, from the Premium, and from the Office Now, if you are going to brand your logo, you want to create access panel using your logo, you can have that when you are not using the free tier, but you are using the basic or premium. Then if you have application you want to run, you can run it on basic. For application proxy, you can run it from basic and the premium type. Then the SLA. Now the SLA for the uptime of Azure from Microsoft to customers is 99.9%. But you can only find it in this tier, on the basic tier, on the premium tier, and also on the Office M365 tier. Now, apart from that, when it comes to security, as I said, the premium has more security in terms of conditional access, multi-factor authentication, cloud discovery, trying to check the health of your devices, and conditional based access based on group and user. You can find all that with the premium. And if you are using premium plus Intune, Intune is a solution that helps to manage the mobile devices in your enterprise in this digital environment. So you can have also that in conditional access on the premium tier. Now, apart from that, then the common scenario in the on-prem side is to be able to manage your devices by joining them to your domain. Now, you might say, with the cloud, is it possible? Yes. With the cloud, when you are using Windows 10 and you are using the directory, the free one, you can actually join. You can have an Azure join of your Windows 10 using your desktop single sign-on, or probably you have your Azure AD and you have your BitLocker connected to it. You can use on all tiers of Azure, the free one, the basic one, the premium, and even the one connected to the Office 365. But if you want future, like trying to manage your mobile and auto enrollment, which will bring the into it, you have the BitLocker. You need the premium, the Azure Active Directory Premium, to be able to do that. Now, we have been able to see that generally we can have access to our directory system. We have seen the tiers of services that Microsoft Azure Active Directory gives us. Now we need to look at the cloud now. How is Microsoft? Because Azure Active Directory is a cloud-based identity management system. An identity management system is a system that you can use to manage the identity of users of the computer. You can also be able to look at in sequential way how the authorization of those users, those identity, be able to consume your application, be able to look at data and have access to any data. So how do we manage this in the cloud? Now, access management in the cloud is more the core reason why the Azure Active Directory is built. Whether you have application you are running, it can help you to build over thousands of apps that has identity need. You can enable it for access to system devices outside your perimeter, and they can have the same access with those that are joined to your domain, in order to increase, because there is a balance here, the balance between technology and the balance between technology and also security. At that point, when you enable business without border, you are saying you want to have a universal access to people, for people to have access to your app, and anywhere they need collaboration, whether through communication, whether through a platform like SharePoint, whether through Team, they need to have access. You need to break that barrier, and that is where security go down and productivity increase. Then you need to manage it at access, and in terms of the protection, cloud protection, which is key. Governance is key, and we know the policies are being made, regulation are increasing every day, from the government to each individual company, whether it's B2B or B2C. You need to understand, you need a system, a core system that can build this. Now, looking at single sign-on to any app, what it means is that I need a way at which I can log into my system when I come in the morning, I can have access to any of my application without re-enter my credential at every time I try to have access to it. Now, whether you are using your SaaS app, whether you are using your own on-prem application, once you have Azure Active Sync, syncing, connecting with your directory system that is on-prem, the Windows directory system, you can have a way by which you can have access to all these applications through a single sign-on. Then single sign-on is made into reality when you have an Azure AD Connect, where you can actually synchronize your directory system from on-prem and connect it to the directory system on Azure, and that will be able to allow you to consume application, software application that runs on Azure or on the Microsoft cloud, and you can sync it in a simple way. You can sync it with condition, and you can sync it to ensure that services are easily inter-exchange between you and every other users that are not logically on your domain system. Now, the first demo we are going to look at is to look at an overview of Microsoft Active Directory. What does it look like? How do we sustain it? What are the I'll just bring my system here, my portal. Now, generally, how do you log in? Once you get to Azure portal, Azure.Microsoft, it asks for your credential. You ensure you have a credential. Either you have a live account or you have a work account. Now, once you have that, you log in with those credentials. It takes you to the Azure Dashboard. Now, the dashboard takes you to give you an overview of what you have in terms of the services, in terms of the subscription you have, the resource group you have built. It also helps you with tools like how to monitor your Azure, how to look at your security score and looking at your security center, how to ensure that your Azure is properly configured. Now, you have a search bar. The search bar, in case you want to search for anything across any services across this, you just need to type it. If I say D now, it gives me every services that you have: deployment, devices, disk, data box, etc. Now at the extreme right, you have your account, where it shows your account. It shows the detail of the user. You can view your account. You can view your subscription type and those accounts that is currently logging. Now you can sign up from there. Then on the setting, now this is where you can change how you want your Azure Active Directory to look like. In case you want to have the default home, you want to have a flyout, you want it to be docked, you want it to be popping out, you want to change the theme. This is where you can do all those changes. Now, there is a bell here. The bell is just telling you if there's a new thing that has happened in terms of activity. The log file quickly show you the event that has happened or not. Then you have the directory and subscription. It shows you the subscription you have and what are the directory you have. Now let's quickly go to the Active Directory. Now, once you click on Active Directory, it shows you. Now you have left Azure now, which is a cloud. You are now going to the directory system. In the directory system, it shows everything you need to know about your directory system, your tenant information, how many the license you are using, your tenant ID, the status, if you have synchronized with your on-prem. Now this is where you can build your hybrid system, where you can have your on-prem system synchronized with Azure Active Directory. Now you can delete this tenant. You can also switch if you have multiple tenants. You can create a tenant from here. Now let's look at other queue we have here. We have the overview that give you get started, what you need to do. Now, if there's diagnosis that have been done and there's sub problem, this is where you get those information. If there's a preview feature that needs to be rolled out in future, this is where you get the preview feature. Then it shows you every information and the date where they release and the type. And it's also still the state if you have made it on or you have made it off. Then you have the diagnosis of sub problem. If there's a problem that has happened, this is where you can get direct link with the support, and you can talk to Microsoft in terms of telling them what you are facing on your Azure and where and how you want them to help you to solve it. Now, when you scroll a little bit down, it comes to the skill of the management. How do you manage this? You can manage users, you can manage groups also. Now, these users show the identity of those that have access to the directory system, and it shows the type they are, whether they are member. Member signifies someone that has an account on your directory system, is your bona fide member of your tenant. Then the guests are people you invite. These are people that are using directory, identity management solution that is outside Microsoft, and they want to connect with you. You can bring them in as a guest, and those ones are your guest users. Now, you can also see from the users crew, you see you can delete user, you can reset password, you can look at the setting of the users, and you can see the setting that have been created in terms of app registration, the portal. If you have LinkedIn, now this is a new integration where you can allow users to connect their company email with LinkedIn. Then when you go down, you can see activity on the users, which tells you how the users is faring, how they log in the last 7 days, and the date, the time, and where. And it also tells you whether there's an issue, whether it was successful. And this also brings us to the audit. You can actually have an audit to get the user. The same thing you can have when you come to the group setting, where you can have the group, and you can look at the group that you have on your system. You can look at when it's going to expire, if there's an expiration attached to it in terms of setting, then naming of the policy. Then there are other activities that are linked to the group, like privileged access. These are access that are determined. In order to manage this kind of people, you must determine the kind of access they have. You now group them. Then the access review. You can also do an audit log. And if you want to talk to Microsoft, if there's an issue, you can create on a new support request and also have that done. Now, in other things you can see on Azure Active Directory is the role and administration, which shows you can have a delegated role. You can also have external identity. If you have an application you are running, the devices that and identity, governance, AD Connect. If you want to synchronize your identity, if you want to manage your device, you have the mobility here. You can reset your password. You can have your company branded, and this is the setting that comes from the. So these are all an overview of what you can see from my Azure Center. Let's quickly go back to our slide because of our time. Now, new identity practice. Generally, identity practice has really changed with the digital enhancement from mobile first and cloud first, where you can use several ways in order to push your identity. One way is called a Microsoft Authenticator, which comes to being when you have an account created. There will be another layer of to determine whether you are the user, and you can have this access once you have an authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator, to authenticate that you are the bona fide user with that account. You can also push notification by using OTP, using what we call the phone or email method, where you can actually use MFA to be able to identify the second layer. Then you can also have what we call a workplace join, where you have a registration of the devices that is confined to certain environments, and that you can easily manage it through this. Now, the SSO single sign-on for your native mobile application using certificate, where certificate has become one of the most trusted a way by which you can actually have a communication between your users and the activity there. As I said, identity is moving with the essence of trying to take away the password and username, and they are trying to build up on services like what identify you, like your fingerprint, like your face, your facial structure. All these are the mix using window hello, which enhance the identification of users and ensure that the bona fide people are being used. It also enable business without border, where making lives of users, especially IT, easier. And with the events of injection of shadow IT, you can even manage devices that are not bona fide devices that are from your establishment or enterprise. You can manage it with your Azure Active Directory to be able to contain every excesses that can come from security. Now, we're going to look at a demo where we are going to create user, create group, and also allocate license to it. Now, let's quickly look at this. And I don't know whether there is any question for me. Promise?
Yes, at the moment,
I
none.
barely have some few minutes.
Yes,
Not
at the
yet.
moment,
Okay.
none. So you can just go on with the practical session. Yes.
Okay. Now, how do users? The first thing is you log into your Microsoft Azure. Now, Microsoft Azure is the platform by which Azure Microsoft identity is built. Now, you look out for the directory, the Azure Active Directory. Once you click on Azure Active Directory, it will tell you and give you an overview of your domain. Now, it will show you your tenant ID. It gives you all the information. Now, what we are trying to do is to create a user. You look out for the users. Now, when you get to the user, you look at new user. Now, when you create a new user, now what you mean here is that this user is a user that is you have identified as someone that is a member of your staff, someone that can use your data and etc. So you look at create users. Now, once you create users, you have identified this person as your bona fide user. Then you now try to create the name. The first thing you need to do is to create a name, and I can give this one demo test. And by default, Microsoft help you to build in terms of directory. If you have multiple domain, it shows the type of domain you have. Now, you know this on Microsoft.com is a default domain that comes from you. Microsoft gives you as part of the package. Once you have a tenant, you create a tenant, you onboard on Microsoft platform, it gives you a domain at that name of that account you are bearing, or that domain you are bearing. Then it's going to be at .onmicrosoft.com. Now, .onmicrosoft.com indicates that this is a default one, but if you want a custom domain, you have to now register that domain. Once you have registered them, you incorporate it into the directory system, then you can see it. So you can have multiple domain. The first thing he wants to know, what is the name of the user? Now is demo and test for this user. Then you need to have the first name. The first name should be demo. The second name should be test. Now, once you have that, you need to now create password. By default, Microsoft Azure automates some password. It creates some password. You can show the password it has created for you. You can see this automatic password, or you can create the password. Usually, most people try to create the password. Now, let's just create the password, and I create the password. Now, if you look at the password, it shows the password. Then, do you want to create? You want to add it to a user, a group. Now, this is where you can actually add it to a group. If there's a group you want to add it, just click on the link. I will also take us to how we can create a group. Now, you see, these are the group we have here. We have, let's just use this default one, and we add this guy here. You select it. That means you have added this user I've just created to a group of the to the Intune pilot. Then I'll look at the block signing. Now, block signing is you want to be able to identify if this signing sequence is authentic. And when you block that signing, you can actually protect that user if that. But let's leave it as a default. No. Then you need to choose a location. Now, the essence of the location is to be able to identify, especially when it comes, like when you start creating conditions. Now, one of condition Microsoft look at is that if a user log in Nigeria and in the next 10 minutes or 15 minutes is logging in from China, that shows that the usage location of that person has been compromised. Something is wrong. For me, it's Nigeria. Now, if you, these are for you to put some more information: job title, IT, department, IT, company name. Just leave it at that. Then, once you are through with this, you now create the user. It takes some few minutes. The user is created. Now let's look at demo test. Let's look out for that user. Demo test. You can see the user has been created as a member, not as a guest. Now let's now look at how do we create a guest. Now, if you are using a B2B and you want to invite people that you do business to, they don't naturally need to have identity in your Azure Active Directory. You can create one using the identity they have in the third-party identity solution system. Now let's look at new guest. Let's just click on new guest. Now you can see the button I've changed to an invite. Now this, you are inviting someone that is not part of your domain, but you want the person to have access. Now let's say I want my Yahoo account to be listed as part of my domain. This is at yahoo.com. And sorry, I mixed. Now, this is the email. What's the first name? Seyi. What's the second name? Square. Now, once I create this and it's sent to that account, you can also find this user right here. You can see it has been created, but you can see the difference. This is a guest. Now, this shows that this user have access to your Active Directory, but as a guest, unlike the earlier one we created that have as. Now let's look at let's try to drill the account. Now, if you want to manage that account.
Yes, Seyi, just before you drill down into that,
Okay.
While you were talking of setting up the users, we got a question that asked, what if I want to use a custom domain? How do I set it up? And also, please note we have about 5 minutes before the round of the session as well.
Okay, so if I get
the person is asking, what if like I have a custom domain, like I want to create users in a custom domain attached to my tenants? Like how do I set it up? That's the question the person is asking.
Okay, the same way you have I created this Seyi Square. Even if it's a custom domain that has an identity, it has a username, and you want that particular user to be able to have access to your domain as a guest. Once you invite him as a guest user, you invite button, then you create the name, testing. Then if the domain is, let's use, let's say testing, which domain can I use? At, which custom domain can I use? Okay, at covenantx.com. This account, valid character, what? You can see it picks it up, even if it's a custom domain. If I get your question right, are you saying a custom domain, can it be invited to be used as a guest in the tenant? I say yes, you can do that. And once you look at, you can also create the first name, second name. If you want to send a personal note message to the person, if you want to add the person to a group, that means they can have access or consume certain, if you want to block, you want to set the location just as you did earlier, you want to create, so this person would look like someone from your directory that has everything that you have as a member, except he is a guest user. Now, before we go, I was talking about drilling down, and let's look at the account I've created. Now, how do I look at the license that this demo test?
Yes, so while you're looking at that,
yeah,
Seyi, hello Seyi. Yeah, while you're looking at that, we just got one more question that says, how does one link a Microsoft 365 subscription to an existing Azure Active Directory as a source of authentication instead of using the Azure AD that comes with Microsoft? So if I get this person right, that's Michael. He is actually asking that maybe he's thinking that the Active Directory of Office 365 is different from that of Azure AD. Azure. So maybe you can provide some form of clarity to if that is possible and how that can be done.
Okay. Just as promise I've said, Azure is the bedrock of all cloud offering in Microsoft. Now, Azure Directory System is the identity management solution system that Microsoft have when it comes to directory access identity and access management. Now, any account that is created from your M365 tenant are all in your Azure, because that is where they are all emerging from. I can show you an example. Let me log into my own M365 and let's see whether the account I just created, that is Seyi test, whether I can find it in my user account. Sorry, I think I have 1 more minute. I hope I'll be able to do this.
Yes, I think you can go ahead. Maybe after this session you want to show us, then we can round up.
Okay, thanks. So I log in with my account, the same account, sign in. I want to sign into it takes me to the Microsoft online portal for M365. Now, let's go, because this particular account is a global admin. So let me just go see the admin icon there. Let me try to log into the admin section and see whether that demo test has been created. You know, from the M365, the user management console have the user and the deletes and the active users and the rest. So let's just hold on. It's come up soon. Right on time. Right on time.
So while Seyi is going on with this, I don't know if there are any other questions. If there are any other questions, you can actually post them to the chat session so we can see how we can provide answers before we round up for today's session.
So you can see the way this is the different category of users. Now this is from the M365 now. My tenant, Active Directory use the active user, the contact, the guest users. Now let's look at the active users. Let's see whether that demo test I created from the Azure portal is probably still here, or maybe Azure is not the bedrock, as I said. Demo tests. Can you see the account here?
Yes, I can.
You can see the same account. Now,
yes, I can.
Now if you go to the same guest user too, you can see the account I created, Seyi Square. I think it's Seyi Square. Or what did I call that account as a guest? Okay, can you see?
Yes.
So anything you create. So the bedrock of Azure Directory System is built, is like a foundation where every other application, whether it's Power Platform, whether it's SQL Server, as long as they are using the identity and access management of Azure, every user is populated to those applications. That's why we have the build of what we call a cloud sync environment that has one core identity system. Sorry,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's very, very wonderful for that powerful session, Mr. Seyi. I guess in a build of the roundup, what we are just trying to explain to Michael is that Microsoft 365 subscription and that of Azure do not have separate identity system. They both use a common system that whichever medium you create your users on, you will be able to see those users in any environment or any of the Azure identity environments you log on to. Like I said, this was a very, very beautiful session. Checking through, I can see that we currently don't have any questions for this session. If you do have any questions, we have our social media handles all wrapped up in here. Please, you can reach out to the social media handles and we'll be able to provide you answers to those questions, even though we'll be rounding up the session for now. Also, please note that we'll be having the second session for introduction to DevOps tools by 6 p.m. today. So don't forget, it's just 2 hours away from now. It promises to be a wonderful session, and we'll be having one of our great speakers talking to us on that, and his name is Damilare Ibrahim. So please don't forget to tune into that session by 6 p.m. At this moment, we'll be rounding up this session, and I'll be hoping to see you back in the next session coming up. All right. It's been a wonderful time with you all. See you in 2 hours' time.